Hello, and thank you for joining us for our second virtual learning session. My name is Kate Larkin, and I'm the CRM for Nova Scotia Council and the interim CRM for New Brunswick Council. And today I'm going to be talking with you about crucial conversations. This includes how to identify when you're having one, how to effectively navigate one once you're in it, and perhaps most importantly, how to improve your chances of a positive resolution. We will also touch on how to coach others to handle crucial conversations as your role as GCs with some of the best practices and tools. So what is a crucial conversation? There are three distinctive features that make a conversation crucial. One is that opinions vary. Two is that stakes are high. And three, emotions run strong. Oddly enough, when these three highly important characteristics are present, it's in our very nature to handle the situation poorly. In other words, when it matters most, we do our worst. That's not to say that everyone is bad at having crucial conversations. It just means that we need to take a breath, realize that we are in a crucial conversation, and that we need to slow down and pay attention. These are not things that are generally in our nature to do. So despite the importance of crucial conversations, we often back away from them because we fear we will make matters worse. We have all become masters at avoiding tough conversations. With the growing dependence on email and texting as forms of communication, it becomes easier to avoid these necessary conversations. And by trying to have them through an email chain or a text message, we often exacerbate the situation through misunderstandings. So the bottom line is, there really is no supplement for an effective crucial conversation. This session is designed to help you navigate the crucial conversation process. Each of us enters into a conversation with our own opinions, feelings, theories, and experiences about the topic at hand. This unique combination of thoughts and feelings makes up our personal pool of meaning. This pool not only informs us, but also propels our every action. It is important to remember that just as you bring your pool of meaning with you into a conversation, so do the other participants. When two or more of us enter a crucial conversation, by definition, we don't share the same pool. Our opinions differ, our histories differ, and our beliefs may differ as well. This brings us to step one. Create a shared pool of meaning. People who are very skilled in dialogue do their best to make it safe for everyone to add their meaning to the shared pool, even ideas that at first glance appear controversial, wrong, or at odds with your own beliefs. Now, obviously, you don't have to agree with every idea. Just simply do your best to ensure that all ideas find their way into the opening or into the pool. As the pool of shared meaning grows, it helps people in two ways. First, as participants are exposed to more accurate and relevant information, they make better choices. The larger your pool of shared meaning, which is made larger by allowing people to openly and freely share ideas, the higher the quality of the decision or outcome will be. Second, since the meaning is shared, people will willingly act on whatever decisions are made with both unity and conviction. In other words, people buy into the decision or outcome much more frequently if they feel like they've contributed to the process. This is a quote that I absolutely love that is actually used in the book, and it's by Samuel Butler, who was a well-known British author. He was really good at having little quips about humanity and what it is to be human. And one of the things that he wrote was, he that complies against his will is of his own opinion still. And it's very, it fits very well with what we're talking about today. So step two, so step one was create that shared pool of meaning. On to step two. Step two is start with heart. Now this is kind of a multi-prong idea. The first one is talking about work on me first, us second. We've all heard that that use of a line, work on me first, us second. It's not you, it's me. We've all heard that before. But more often than not, we do something that contributes to our own problems that we're experiencing. We are our own worst enemies. Now, you will benefit from improving your approach, but no matter how good you are, the only person you can directly control is you. I'm not teaching Jedi mind tricks here. So what you want to do is begin high-risk discussions with the right motives and then stay focused no matter what happens. So working to continually improve your dialogue skills by taking things like this learning session here and really diving deep into what you bring to a conversation can really impact how the conversation moves forward. And starting off with that heart, starting off on the right foot, making sure that you have yourself in check first can really make the difference. One of the ways that you can do that is actually looking for your style under stress. So I have attached to this information package a little bit of a test that you can take that will identify your style when you're stressed out. It's a really good place to start. It does actually come with all the instructions and how to decipher your results because, as Dr. Phil says, we can't change what we don't acknowledge, which is one of my favorite Dr. Phil quotes. Yeah, so that test is available in this information package and will absolutely help you in kind of understanding what you're bringing into the conversation. So what you're sharing in your shared pool of meaning. Step 2 in our Start with Heart is focus on what you really want. So when you find yourself moving towards silence or violence, which I'll get to in a minute, make sure you stop and pay attention to your motives, which basically means when you find the conversation is kind of going off in the ditch or derailing a little bit, make sure that you stop and pay attention to your motives. Ask yourself, what does my behavior tell me about what my motives are? And think about how you're portraying that. So then clarify what you really want. Ask yourself, what do I want for myself? What do I want for others? And what do I want for the relationship? These questions are going to come up often in this session because they should be coming up often in your crucial conversation. Then finally, once you've answered all of those questions, ask yourself, how would I behave if this were what I really wanted? So when you answer those questions and the answer for yourself is one thing, ask yourself if you're behaving in a way that is going to get you that one thing. The next approach to Start with Heart is refuse the fool's choice. So the fool's choice is looking at the either or choices that can happen in a conversation. So a lot of times you enter in a conversation thinking that you have to choose this either or. So what that does is that pins you in a spot where you feel like you don't have options. So the either or choices limit the possibilities of the outcome. We assume that we have to choose between getting results and keeping a relationship. We sometimes don't even consider the option of achieving both. As you consider what you want, as per the last slide, notice when you're starting to talk yourself into the fool's choice. So notice when the language comes up where you feel like you're having to decide between what you want and what is a good outcome. Clarify what you don't want and add it to what you do want to ask your brain to start searching for healthy options that brings you to a healthy dialogue. So break free of these fool's choices. These fool's choices can be things like, if I want honesty in this conversation, I'm going to have to forfeit peace. Or I'm coming into this conversation and I'm going to emerge this conversation either winning or losing. I'm going to go in to get results or I'm going to keep the relationship. So it tricks your brain into thinking that you can't have both. So we can break free of these fool's choices by searching for the elusive and. The best at dialogue refuse the fool's choices by setting up new choices. They present themselves with tougher questions that turn the either or choice into a search for the all-important and ever-elusive and. Here's how. So you have a head start here when we're talking about clarifying what you really want, right? Because you've already started the conversation with heart. If you already know what you want for yourself, others, and the relationship, you are in good shape here for avoiding that fool's choice. Step 2, clarify what you really don't want. This part is key to framing the question. Think of what you're afraid of happening if you abandon your current strategy. Think of what you don't want to happen and really clarify that. Then once you have what you really do want and you know what you really don't want, present your brain with a more complex problem. So combine the two into a question that forces you to search for the more creative and productive option. How can I have a conversation with my husband about being more dependable and avoid creating bad feelings or wasting our time? Right? There is a way to accomplish both. You just need to find it. That leads us into step 3. And I alluded to this a little bit earlier, but we're really going to get into some kind of telltale signs that the conversation is going south and that we need to stop and take a step back. So step 3 is learn to look for safety problems. Keep an eye out for signs that the safety of your pool is in danger. So remember that loop around the pool that was really the safety zone. So you are making it safe to create a pool of shared meaning. As people begin to feel unsafe, they start down one of 2 unhealthy paths. Now, this is a generalization. Of course, there are lots of little quips in between. There's little things that other people do. It's not a catch-all, but these are really a broad term. These are a lot of broad terms that are used, so they are a generalization. But generally, people start down one of 2 unhealthy paths. So they move either to silence, which means that they are withholding meaning from the pool, or to violence, which means they are trying to force their meaning into the pool. Either way, they feel like it's an unsafe environment to enter their meaning into the shared pool. So you need to remember that's where it's coming from. So silence, we're talking about avoiding. So we're withholding meaning from the pool. So the other person doesn't feel like it's safe to really tell you what they want, what they think, and what they feel. So they do this in three kind of categories. One is masking, which is understating or selectively showcasing your true opinions. A really popular one here is sarcasm or sugarcoating. This is all forms of masking. Avoiding means steering completely away from sensitive subjects. And of course, withdrawing, which means pulling out of a conversation altogether, either by exiting the room or the conversation. Then we go into violence, which means the person doesn't feel like it's safe to, like they're being asked in a safe manner to enter their meaning into the pool. So they feel like they have to force it in there in a very controlling way. So controlling means coercing others into your way of thinking. So cutting people off or overstating your facts, speaking in absolutes, changing the subjects, things like that, really trying to control the dynamic of the conversation. Labeling is one that also happens, which means putting a label on people or ideas so that they can be dismissed under a general stereotype or category. So really saying like, you know, everybody thinks this or nobody thinks that kind of thing. And then finally, of course, attacking. So it obviously speaks for itself. You've moved from then winning the argument as being that thing that you want to making the person suffer. So like belittling and threatening and things like that. So these are safety problems to really keep an eye out for during the flow of your conversation. So step 4. So what happens when that does go on is you need to step out, make it safe. So reestablish that safety and then step back in. So the number one thing to do is notice which condition is at risk. So there are 2 conditions that could be generally at risk: mutual purpose or mutual respect. So mutual purpose is that when crucial conversations go awry, and they often do, it's not because others dislike the content of the conversation, but because they believe the content, even if it's delivered in a gentle way, suggests that you have malicious intent. So this means, like, how can others feel safe? Remember that safety zone. How can others feel safe when they believe that you're out to harm them? You need to portray that you're working towards a common outcome in the conversation, that you care about their goals, interests, and values. This works both ways. It's important to portray that you believe that they care about yours too. So we need to not only portray this, but it needs to be genuine. So if our intention is to get our way or manipulate others, this will quickly become apparent and safety will be totally destroyed. So the name of the game for this one is genuine, authenticity. Really care about where the other person's coming from and really, understand the fact that you believe that they care about your side as well. So that could be at risk, the mutual purpose. The other thing that could be at risk is mutual respect. So as people perceive that others don't respect them, the conversation immediately becomes unsafe and dialogue comes to a screeching halt. So respect is like air. As long as it's present, nobody thinks about it. But if you take it away, it's all that people can think about. The instant people perceive disrespect in a conversation, the interaction is no longer about its original purpose. It is now about defending our dignity. So what do you do once you step out? So one of these two things is at risk. Your safety is at risk. We're seeing the person you're talking to start to elicit some negative actions. So whether it be through silence, sarcasm, or belittling, violence, things like that. You're noticing these things. What do you do at that point? So you step out, and then what? There are three things that you can do to maintain safety or to get safety back into a conversation. Number one is apologize. Now, apologize has an asterisk beside it that says when appropriate. So apologize when you've made a mistake that has hurt another. Start with apology. An apology is a statement that sincerely expresses your sorrow for your role in causing, or at least not preventing, pain or difficulty to others. It's to offer a sincere apology. Your motives have to change. So this may help restore safety. So if you do apologize, you do have to make sure that your actions change once you've apologized. So in order to make it genuine, right? You can't just apologize and then continue doing what you were doing. You really have to take a step back, apologize, take responsibility for your role, and then move on in a healthier way. So this may help, this right here may help restore safety. If not, we can move on to the next step. So if that went a little ways, but it didn't really fix your problem, or sometimes others feel disrespected during a crucial conversation, even though you haven't done anything disrespectful. So in that case, we're going to skip apologize and go right to contrast. So you can start by innocently sharing your views, obviously. So in that pool of meaning, you start by sharing your views, but the other person believes that your intention is to harm them or coerce them into accepting your opinion. So clearly an apology, because your intentions were good, clearly an apology is not appropriate in these circumstances. It wouldn't be genuine to admit you were wrong when you weren't wrong. So in that case, try contrasting. So by starting with what you don't intend or mean, and then explain what you do intend or mean. So for example, if I say something like, the last thing I wanted to communicate was that I don't value the work that you put in, right? Then I would say, I think your work has been nothing short of spectacular. So that really gets back to creating that, that mutual purpose. And it really does kind of take away that possibility for misunderstanding. So contrasting, here's what I did not mean, and here's what I did, and then it takes the onus on you as well. So once you've done that, you've stepped out, you've made it safe again, you've either apologized or contrasted, we're back on track, then you can step back in and get back to finding that mutual purpose, to find common ground to move on from. So what do you do when the safety of your pool is threatened and you're faced with your conversation partner either blowing up or clamming up? We've all been there, right? So to encourage the free flow of meaning and to help others leave silence or violence behind, start with an attitude of curiosity and patience, of course. This helps to restore safety. Use these 4 powerful listening skills to help you. Ask. Start by simply expressing interest in the other person's views. Mirror. Increase safety by respectfully acknowledging the emotions people appear to be feeling. Paraphrase. As others begin to share part of their story, restate what you have heard to show not just that you understand, but also that it is safe for them to share what they are thinking. And prime. If others continue to hold back, prime. Take your best guess at what they might be thinking and feeling. Once you've listened to their contribution to the shared pool of meaning, it's time for you to share your views. Remember your ABCs. Agree. Agree when you share views. Build. If others leave something out, agree where you share views, and then build. And finally, compare. When you do differ significantly, don't suggest others are wrong, but compare your 2 views. So everyone loves a story. Stories provide our rationale for what's going on. They are our interpretations of the facts. If you want improved results from your critical conversations, change the stories you tell yourself, even when you're in the middle of the fray. So what we do when we're in the middle of a story, and I'm going to explain the stories in the next slide here, but what I want you to do is think about when you're telling yourself these stories, what you need to do is notice your behavior. Am I in some form of silence or violence? Am I doing these actions? Am I being sarcastic? Get in touch with your feelings. Ask, what emotions are encouraging me to act this way? Analyze your stories. Ask, what story is creating these emotions? And get back to the facts. Ask, what evidence do I have to support this story? So what stories am I talking about? We are very good at coming up with explanations that serve us well. Either our stories are completely accurate and send us in healthy directions, or they're quite inaccurate but justify our current behavior. When we feel we need to justify our ineffective behavior or disconnect ourselves from our bad results, we tend to tell ourselves stories in 3 very predictable ways. These make us feel good about ourselves, and they call for no need for action or change on our part. So the 3 different types of stories that we've been known to tell ourselves, number 1 is the victim stories. It's not my fault. They make us out to be innocent sufferers. The theme is always the same. The other person is bad and wrong, and we are good and right. Other people do bad or stupid things, and we suffer as a result. Within most crucial conversations, when you tell yourself a victim story, you are intentionally ignoring the role that you have played in the problem. Number 2 is the villain story. It's all your fault. We've created these nasty little tales by turning normal, decent human beings into villains. Not only do villain stories help us blame others for bad results, but they also set us up to do whatever we want to the villain. Now, watch out for your double standards here. If you pay attention to these stories, the villain and the victim ones, and catch them for what they are, which is really just unfair caricatures, you begin to see the terrible double standards that we use when our emotions are out of control. When we make mistakes, we tell the victim story, but implying that our intentions were always good and pure. Then there's the helpless stories. In these stories, we make ourselves out to be powerless to do anything helpful or healthy. For example, if I don't yell at my son, he won't listen. So these are the stories that I was talking about that we really need to look at when we're asking ourselves these. What story is creating the emotions that we're feeling right now? And what evidence do I have to support that this story is in fact what's happening? This is a very important and pivotal tool to learn about communication. Because these happen rather innately. They happen instinctually, and it's a really great it's a really great skill to be able to identify these when you're in the middle of a conversation. So what if the meaning gets risky? Adding information to the pool of meaning can be quite difficult, especially when the ideas that we're about to pour into the collective consciousness contain delicate, unattractive, or controversial opinions. So when you're doing that, there's 3 kind of things that you can remember. And one is confidence. So be confident that your opinion deserves to be placed in the pool of meaning. So that just means that you're taking all of this time to make sure you create a safe environment for the other person to place their opinion into the pool of meaning. But you also need to take that time for yourself as well, and be confident that your opinion deserves, you've heard them out and you deserve to be heard out as well. Also show confidence that you can speak openly without making a personal attack. And the more you do that, the more confident you will become. The next thing is humility. Realize that others have a valuable input. You don't have a monopoly on the truth, right? So recognizing that your opinions provide a starting point, but not the final word. That goes a long way. And finally, skill, doing exactly what you're doing now, honing your conversation skills, starting with heart, creating a pool of shared meaning. All of these things will give you the confidence and provide you the structure you need to succeed. So while you're doing this, you can really talk yourself through if it's really an uncomfortable conversation that you're going to be having. This is a really good state is a really good process to follow to keep you on track. So share your facts. Start with the least controversial and the most persuasive elements. So when I say start with the facts, these are exactly that. These are facts. These are not your story. These are facts. So you earn the right to tell your story by starting with your facts. Then you go into tell your story. Explain what you're beginning to conclude given the facts. The next is ask for others' paths. So encourage others to share both their facts and their stories. Then talk tentatively. State your story as a story. Don't disguise it as facts. You can soften the message while still being direct here, but make sure that you are distinguishing between your story or the conclusions that you're coming to and fact, right? The final thing is encourage testing. Make it safe for others to express differing or even opposing views. Invite opposing views. Finally, these are questions to ask yourself in the moment. So this is just a quick reminder. Make sure, so along the ebb and flow of the conversation, you should be checking in with yourself these questions. Am I pretending to not notice my role in the problem? Why would a reasonable, rational, and decent person do this? What do I really want? Remember, for myself, for the others, and for the relationship. And what would I do right now if I really wanted those results, right? Finally, it's time for action. How to turn crucial conversations into action and result. The key here is to set clear expectations on both sides of the conversation. These expectations should include who does what, by when, and how you will follow up. This should be agreed upon by all parties that were taking part in the conversation. And what I like to do personally is, after we've had a crucial conversation, is following up with a quick email that just lays this exact thing out. Who does what, by when, and how will you follow up? And then that just states it into a more formal agreement that everyone's agreed to. It does help also to maybe put a little summary of the conversation that you had as well, just for everybody involved. But this is the important part when walking away to really agree to, in order for it to become a game changer of a conversation. So, as GC, you will have many opportunities for crucial conversations with people in multiple different roles. Your section scouters, however, have one type of specific crucial conversation that may come up more than others. How do you best support them in having crucial conversations with parents, especially when the topic at hand is their child? Here are some things for your section scouters to remember. Number one, parents are professionals, so they should be treated as such. It doesn't matter if the parent is employed, unemployed, what they do for a living, how they run their household. None of that matters. What matters is that the parent is a parent. And though there is no degree conferred upon anybody for that challenge, they are the experts of their children. Be willing to listen to what parents have to say and approach every conversation with an open mind, free of judgment. What the parent tells you about the child may surprise you, help you, and guide you towards making the best decisions on how you approach your interaction with that child. Number two, parents follow schedules. If a scouter wants to connect with a parent, the scouter should contact the parent and schedule a time to talk. No sharing of information in the hall or in passing or in the meeting space during a meeting. If you must do that, please be considerate of where you are sharing them and when you are sharing news with parents. And please be aware of the audience. Another youth, other scouters, other parents. Please be aware that that's not the best time to have a crucial conversation with a parent with all those other people walking around. Often parents are moving from one event to the next. So in the middle of dropping their children off or managing someone's nap time is not a great time to have these conversations. So just send a quick email saying, hey, I'd like to schedule a talk. And then the parent can be ready for a conversation and really give you their full attention, right? So next, the parents are busy. This kind of goes into the same thing. Parents are, they're dealing with life. They're dealing with life, they're dealing with kids, and especially right now, they're dealing with a whole new set of challenges, right? So be aware of how precious their time is. Be specific about your concerns in these conversations and provide concrete examples of the youth's behavior. Know exactly what points you want to convey to the parent and be willing to listen to what the parent says. Work together to brainstorm solutions if possible. The next thing is that parents care. They love their children with all of their hearts, and they are sharing their child with you for a part of the day. They trust you, right? So most parents are doing the very best they can with what they have. So those are things that really need to be remembered, and you need to come into the conversation knowing those things, right? That mutual purpose. Parents are human, and they have good days and bad days, just like you and I, just like their children. If a parent doesn't get a form signed right away, or maybe calls you the wrong name or something like that, relax. If you connect with a parent on the phone, consider starting the conversation by saying something nice about his or her child. This is massive. Please don't call them and immediately start going into how awful their kid is and that you can't stand having them at meetings. Definitely make sure that you're, starting off with something positive about their child. So what I've done here is just offers a couple situational suggestions, because these are things that do come up often. I've heard these often, and so I just wanted to show you something to try. So the first scenario is if a parent disagrees with you about their child's behavior. I've heard this one very often. So instead of being defensive, what I would suggest trying is something like this. Sometimes children behave differently at home or at school than they do here. I'm only able to share with you what I've seen here at our meetings. Can you think of something here or during our meetings that could be contributing to this? This is a very kind of moderate way of taking the onus off of the child and coming at it from a problem-solving perspective. You're not implying that their child is bad. You're not putting any blame on the child or anything like that. And you're also not coming at it with an accusatory tone. You're coming at it rather to brainstorm ideas that could really help their child. The other thing that you're doing in that situation is you're being very specific about what you're seeing, and you're also acknowledging that this is not a broad, you don't see the child all day, every day. This is just a small snippet of that child's life. And you just want to make sure that they're getting the best of the program. So you want to do everything you can to help, right? The other situation is if a parent gets angry or upset with you. If that happens, try something like this. I understand that you're upset. Like you, I want what is best for Taylor. That is why it's so important for me to share with you what I'm seeing so that we can work together to ensure Taylor is getting the most out of our programming. Again, you're coming at it from a problem-solving perspective. You're doing what you can, because here's the thing. When we talked earlier, a few slides back, about creating that mutual purpose, the bottom line to understand when dealing with parents is that a parent's purpose is always, always, always their child. So knowing that going in order for you to create a mutual purpose, your purpose of that conversation also has to be their child. And the purpose behind it should be making sure that their child is getting the very best out of the program that we can manage, right? So that is a game changer. Starting the conversation off on that foot, taking that approach to the conversation. And again, remember, checking back with yourself throughout the conversation to make sure that you're keeping your eye on the prize with that mutual purpose. That will be, like I said before, an absolute game changer in your conversations with parents. I've left some other tips here that are really important. I'm just going to point out a couple. One, again, never talk in front of the youth, of the child. Please have these conversations with the parents and not with the child involved. The other thing that I was going to, other two things that I wanted to bring up was if the behavior is, if the parents just aren't seeing that behavior in any other capacity in the child's life, absolutely invite the parent to join the youth for a meeting to see what you're talking about, and see if that helps move the conversation forward. The last thing that I just wanted to bring up is to be sure to comply with any ongoing suggestions or treatments that the youth has already been prescribed. In a lot of these cases, especially with exceptionalities and things like that, if they have structures in place that are to help mitigate some challenges that they have, or their help to keep them calm, whatever the situation may be, make sure that you're doing everything you can to incorporate those into the meetings as well. This is just because in a lot of these treatments and a lot of these behavior management suggestions, or really anything that the parent gives you in terms of help or suggestions, consistency is key. So if there are some structures, and I mean, I'm not talking about building a classroom around a specific youth, but I am saying something like, if it's as simple as having a schedule, going over the schedule of the meeting before you start every week, just to give that youth so they know what to expect moving into transitions, things like that. If that's all that's needed in order to to help a youth's anxiety, for example, then that's a pretty easy fix. And if the parent suggests that be part of the program, then that would be kind of a no-brainer to add to the program. So yeah, so those are 4 tips for talking to parents. We will get into a little bit more of that kind of stuff a little bit deeper in our summer sessions when we start talking about behavior management and things like that as well. So just to wrap up, I want to make sure that I give this wonderful book its dues. This is the book that basically all of this has been taken from. So this is called Crucial Conversations. I highly recommend it. It's a wonderful read. There's a lot of online resources at the Vital Smarts website. And yeah, it's just a great book. So most of the concepts that you saw today in today's presentation are from this book. Yeah, and like I said, I can't say enough good things about it. It's amazing. In terms of local support, from the GC training course in Ottawa, which most of you have had the pleasure of attending, in the resources section of your binder, there is a little part that's called Giving and Receiving Feedback Tips and a feedback worksheet. And that is using the AID structure, I believe. It's really, really great. It's one of those things, it's kind of a functional way of sitting down with yourself ahead of time and going through and really defining what you want from this conversation. So it's a really great way of working through those questions that we talked about earlier. And of course, as always, your relationship manager is always available to help you if you need help planning it out, if you want to breathe some stuff by them so they can give you feedback, or even to give you support during the conversation. Your relationship manager is always there for that kind of support. Yeah, so other than that, I thank you very much for listening, and let your relationship manager know if you need anything else, and we look forward to speaking again.